Good morning. We decided, since we're talking about D&C 89, the word of wisdom this week, that we would talk a little bit about herbs and we would take a walk in the garden. One of the things that has amazed me over the last couple of years as I've started studying herbs more and healing with herbs is how many things grow in my yard that are helpful for healing. Now, I am not a medical professional, and this does not take the place of medical advice. So that's my disclaimer because I have to do that legally. But I'm just going to show you some of the things that I do, and you need to make sure that you're safe and that you're careful. Talk to a medical professional if that's what you need. But we're going to take a walk around the yard. We're going to start with some things that are more familiar. And the nice thing about this is, as I've done this, my children have learned to do some of this gathering. They've learned to use some of this herbs. And I think that I hope it's a blessing to them as they are in training for when they grow up and they get married and they have children and they have to help take care of their families. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk with Catherine today. We're going to take our camera on our phone. This is your tool, because what I do is I take I'm going to start with things that I think you probably know too, but you take a picture of it and then you use your artificial intelligence, your AI lens on Google, and I think the Apple phone has the same thing, similar things, and it will actually help you to identify what you're looking at. I actually did this with my goats. But I was trimming up a tree, and there are some things that are really good for them and some things that are poisonous, and I thought, I'm in a new house, I don't know what that plant is, so I took a picture, I used the AI lens, and then when I did that, I was able to know, yes, that's a plant, that's a tree I can give these limbs off of to my goats. They love tree branches, so I was glad I could give those to them. Okay, so we're going to walk over here. We're going to start with something you know, and then we'll see what we can find that maybe people don't know yet. Okay?
Yep.
Here we go. All right, we got a couple things growing here. Come over here with the camera. This one might look really familiar. It's actually growing next to my parsley. I know the parsley. We planted that. But we're going to take the camera, get it to my camera setting, and we're going to get in on it and focus and take a picture. And I try to get a really good focus on it. Later when I go inside, I'm going to take that and do some other. Now, there is another one I wasn't planning to do. This one right here. You see it? Kind of when it starts coming up, it looks a little bit like a dandelion, but it's not quite a dandelion. It's actually a very helpful plant. And of course, I have these. This is always fun. I get sunflowers that come up wild in my yard. They're pretty easy to tell. It's got a flower on it. It's a sunflower. It's even starting to go to seed on a couple of them right here. You see that? So let's take a walk over here. Let's find a dandelion. And I am identifying this one because I'm pretty sure you guys all know dandelions. Most people hate dandelions. One right there. Let's go out here on one that's got a flower. That's the easiest to identify when it's got a flower on it. When they grow in the grass, sometimes herbs are a little harder to identify. So I am actually a little curious myself. How well will my camera identify dandelion? Now, I want to show a couple of things. This is one when it doesn't have the flowers, and sometimes it gets really spindly when it's dry. But you look at the leaf right here, and here's why it's called dandelion. See how it's ridged like teeth? That makes it a dandelion. Those are like lion's teeth. Now, this one's a bitter herb. It has many things that it's good for. Let's take a walk down here. You ready? Show the way. Let's go find some gumweed.
Gumweed just tends to come up on its own. We've had tons of it all over. But here's some right here. It's really nice and easy to tell once it blooms. This is one that hasn't bloomed yet. And you can tell when it's gumweed if it doesn't have a flower because it's really nice and gummy on the flower. It's sticky, really sticky, so you have to be careful if you're picking it. Just not get yourself too sticky because it doesn't like to come off. But this is gumweed. It's good for bronchial things. So it goes bronchial, and this is kind of for Mom, but she said it tastes really nasty. I can't say because I haven't had it.
So some of the diseases and illnesses we're dealing with right now in this world, COVID included, is that sometimes it goes into your lungs and you get that bronchial cough and it's really hard to breathe. And so when I got sick last year, and I'm pretty sure it was COVID actually, it was started to go into my lungs. And I thought, what do I have? Because I'd already been doing all the other natural stuff I knew. And it was doing okay, but it wasn't quite kicking it. And so I grabbed that gumweed because I knew it was bronchial. And fortunately, it works quickly because it is really nasty. But within a couple of cups of gumweed infusion or tea, whatever you want to call it, nasty. I mean, it's like turpentine smells, right? But but it cleared it so fast. So again, I can't give you medical advice, but I can tell you what I've done, and that really, really was a great blessing to me. What else are we going to look at today, Catherine?
Are we going to do the aster?
Yeah, there's some aster right here, isn't there?
Yep. I don't really know what it's good for, but I know it's good for you. It's really pretty. Small purple petals. And really thin leaves.
Yeah, look at the whole thing. Look at what the leaf looks like. Look at what the leaf looks like, because you want to be able to recognize it from the plant, even when it doesn't have its flower on it. It's a little dry this year, so it's not growing in the big, copious bunches that I'm used to seeing. But it's still growing, even though it's a little bit dry.
Yep.
Here we go. We're going to walk over here. I've planted some more sunflowers. Oh, here's a great one, actually. I want to talk about this one right here. This one is very distinctive. You can see it's got a round leaf, and then it starts to get this white flower on it.
Almost like a lily pad.
That's true. It almost looks like a lily pad because of that round leaf. But these things right here, this is where it's going to flower. A lot of times people eat these. Kids call them cheese heads. They say it tastes a little bit like cheddar cheese. You ever tried it, Catherine? I haven't ever tried it. Should I try it? I'll see. Hang on.
Sure.
I don't taste cheese, but it's kind of sweet. You can eat what's in your plant, in your yard. That one comes up everywhere. It puts out on a deep root, so if it comes up somewhere you don't want it, don't feel bad moving it, because it will come up somewhere else. But it's a really good one. It's got a lot of good qualities, too. All right, let's take these things inside. Let's take our pictures and see if we can get the AI lens to identify those for us and then show people how we look things up a little bit. Okay, here we go. So now that we've taken all those pictures, Catherine, what we'll do is we'll come in on our phone, or you can do this on a computer, but you want to identify the plant. Now this one's out in the middle of the grass on a Google phone. I don't know about iPhones, but on a Google phone, this little box with a circle in the middle is what they call their Google Lens. And you see it's identified it now, and it brings up some options. Common dandelion. Imagine that, the common dandelion. And it'll have different kinds of pictures for you on it and give you a little bit of it. But what I do after I get the name, and sometimes what you want is, like this is the common name, sometimes you're going to want even this official name, the Taraxacum officinale, right?
That's an interesting name.
I don't name them. That's true. And then I don't like to use Google for my searching because they tend to weed out anything that's natural and go more for your medical ones. And the medical ones like to scare you. So I try to avoid those. Not that I'm not cautious, because I am cautious, but I just know that sometimes they are trying to turn you away from using the common plants and flowers and herbs. So you can do Dandelion Uses, or Dandelion Uses and Benefits comes up. If I put that, I get all sorts of, these are obviously advertisements, gardening know-how, and you can read a little bit as you go. Traditionally used as a diuretic or a laxative. They're really good for your kidneys, actually, and that's what it says right there. Liver, kidneys, gallbladder, WebMD I actually avoid. But some of these, and you really have to weed through these things. You have to be praying and prayerful and letting the Spirit direct you for what is really needed. This one might be interesting, 25 creative ways to use dandelions. Also high in potassium, which is really good for regulating your heart and your blood pressure. There's
One
lots.
way
Go ahead.
I like to use the flowers for dandelion is I like to make dandelion bread.
Oh, yes, dandelion
it's
bread.
really yummy and sweet.
And the flower is just as good for you as the leaf and the root. Everything about this plant is good for you. So that's one way that I do that. And now let's go to one that we weren't quite as sure of. Go back to our gallery. This is our gumweed. Let's do it with the flower. Sometimes the more of the plants you can get, the better. Sometimes you're going to have to look it up a couple of different times. Remember when we first looked up the dandelion, it thought it was something else. So you can see it comes up with gumweed, different kinds there. And you'll do the same thing. You're going to go find gumweed on your browser. And I already looked this one up, so I'm going to go into it. You can also, sometimes instead of uses, I will put, can you eat? And so that's what I did with the gumweed. I said, can you eat gumweed? And all these things came up and tell you a little bit about it. And so this one's called Wild Food Girl. So, this one right here, she's talking about how can you use it edibly. And so she's got that it makes an effective expectorant and talks about some different things. I don't trust one source, and I try to find as much information as possible so that I can begin to kind of weed things out. Like I said, you have to be really careful. Look it up in lots of different places, Catherine. Don't go to just one place.
Yep.
Get some good herb books. You'll start to find sites that you like better than others. But then always pray. Always pray. Use things very prayerfully. Heavenly Father gave us these plants because He wants us to be able to heal ourselves. And that's something that I've found kind of interesting is when something starts growing in my yard, I'll go and research it, and quite often it will answer a health difficulty or issue that we are dealing with in our house. And so that's been really, really helpful to us. So I hope that helps you. Remember, I'm not a physician. I'm not a medical doctor. So this is just my experience and for information purposes only. And if you need help from a medical doctor, do so. One of the things that I also do is I have friends that are really good with herbs, and I go on herb walks with them. And I take pictures and I take notes, and then I go home and do some more research and praying. So I hope this helps you. I do believe that part of the word of wisdom is to remind us that Heavenly Father has given us these things to help heal our bodies. And that's what He says. Ezekiel and Revelation talk about leaves for healing. The Book of Mormon tells us how they healed things with the great plants that grew in their area. So I know that Heavenly Father is giving this to us to help us heal and to keep us from having things that we don't need to have. I can tell you that this has blessed my life too.
If you've been liking our videos, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe, and if you want to receive notifications, hit the bell. Also, find and like us on Facebook. We hope to see you next time.